Today, we're talking about content. So the whole purpose of this workshop is to help you create a sound content strategy that's going to help you, one, obviously be confident in the content that you are producing and sharing with the world. And also, in doing so, you're also going to say bye-bye and help diminish the social media overwhelm, the paralysis, the fear, whatever it is that you're feeling when it comes to social media. Trust me, even as a marketer, I feel it sometimes where I'm like, oh, I have to post again. So the whole point of this is to give you these tools to help you really be more confident in what you are producing. So in the next slide, I just kind of want to give you a quick summary on what's in store. So the first thing we're going to discuss is we're really going to try to uncover the reasons why having a content strategy is important in your toolkit so that it will help you achieve your business goals. So that is key, and I will share how and why in the following sections. Secondly, I will share with you my 5 steps to creating a compelling content strategy for my own clients, for myself, for Halcon, so that you have that step-by-step guide and you can implement it with your business. And last but not least, I'm going to share some content tools that are going to help you work smarter, not harder, so that you don't feel like you're spending either a majority of your day or your week either trying to figure out what to post or actually scheduling it. So it's a really great time to talk about these things. Obviously, in the climate that we are in and the fact that we are in Q4, we have the holidays approaching. So there is no better time than now to really create a content strategy that works for your business and will really appeal to your customers. So I'm going to run through the next 2 slides really quickly. So I just want to introduce myself. Hi everyone. I am Nicole. So I help trailblazers and purpose-driven business owners transform their businesses into brands. And what does that mean, right? So the whole point of that is my goal is to help those folks and those businesses who really want to stand for something. They're focused on becoming a brand with a clear message. And essentially, you want your business to mean more than what you sell or do, right? So becoming a brand means you're really transcending the product or service you offer so that you stand for something more. And, think about your favorite brands and why you keep coming back to them. Right? Who are you loyal to out there in the marketplace? So those reasons why you keep coming to those brands is what I help you with your business, right? So for this reason, I became so passionate about it that in the next slide, I created a boutique marketing firm called Halcon. I know some of you who are here. I've helped some of you. You guys are awesome. I love you all. And we've been really blessed to help 40 plus businesses and entrepreneurs and nonprofits really define their brands and reach their target audiences. What's really unique about my experience and what I'll bring to the table for this workshop as well is that I did spend my career working with bigger brands across the country. So I've kind of pinpointed what works and what is unnecessary for a small business, because as you know, when you Google, there's all these things that people say you have to do, and some of them you really don't have to do. So I've kind of filtered through all of that. So hopefully what you see in this workshop is going to be a lot more digestible and easy for you to do. So let's get started with section 1. So before we dive in to the whole content strategy piece, I really want to have a real talk about what content is, right? So before we get to the nitty-gritty and discuss all the strategies and tactics, it's really important to fully grasp what we mean when we say content, and also that we're all in the same mindset regarding content's impact and its purpose specifically for your business. So in the next slide, and please let me know if I'm talking too fast. I'm notorious for talking too fast, so feel free to
I think you're doing great. You're fine.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is content? Content is information that is presented to an audience for a specific purpose, created in a variety of forms, and delivered on a variety of mediums. So content encompasses obviously social media, which we will kind of dive deeper into today, editorial content, your blog posts, your digital articles, if you're sponsoring an article, print ads, all that stuff, plus obviously a podcast or video. So all of that is in your toolbox when we're talking about content marketing. So in the next slide, we're going to talk about your goals. So the goal of your content is to obviously build awareness, also educate, and also build that trust, create that relationship. And all of this is for the primary goal that you're leading people, your customers, through the buying process. So specifically towards social media, right? I think it's really important to debunk this myth that some people believe that social media is just, hey, this is a tool to grow followers, build awareness, we're gonna DM people and get that outreach, and that's it. So when we're talking about sales funnels and buying processes, so that is a whole other workshop, but it's really important to note that you can use social media as a tool to lead customers down the buying process in any stage. So you can use it to build awareness, you can use it to kind of help people consider your product. So, you know, those folks that may put your product in the cart but not buy it because they're mulling it over. And then obviously after they purchase, you want to build that loyalty. So social media is a great tool for all of those stages. And we'll talk a little bit more about how you can use social media to target those individual folks down that buying process. So last but not least, it's really important to have a plan because you want to have content for the folks in those different stages of the process that I mentioned earlier. So if you're only focused on building awareness, you might be always introducing yourself or posting content only on your products or your services. So you're kind of introducing your business, but what about those folks that already know about your business, but are kind of thinking, hey, should I pick you or should I pick that other photographer? Or should I pick you or should I pick that other florist? So you need to create different kinds of content for those folks on different stages in their familiarity. Meg, help me with this word.
Familiarity.
There we go. See, Meg, thank you so much with your.
Got you, girl.
So one kind of content isn't always going to work. And it's really important for you to have a robust and diverse arsenal of content for your social media. So in the next slide, if there's one thing I want you guys to take from this content section is content takes the focus off of sales into a place of service. So this is really crucial, especially when we're talking about social media. And I think you guys can all relate to being on your Instagram feed and scrolling through, and the only content you see from an account is buy this, $10.99, $9.99, and you know, it's just the same thing over and over again because all they want to do is try to sell to you, right? So the moment we shift our focus from I want to sell, I need to make my quota into, hey, how can I really help these people that I created my business for, right? That's when you start building those key relationships, and that's when you start to pave the way for sales. I mean, think about it, you know, how often do you see an ad on Instagram and say, oh, I'm going to buy that right now? Usually you see it over and over, or you save it, and then finally later on you're like, oh, I really like it, I still think about it, I did some more research on it, I'm going to buy it, right? So it's really important to be consistent with your content so that, and really show your customer how you can help them. Anyway, next slide, please. So content creation, and this is something that I actually laugh about with clients, with colleagues. It should be really fun. I mean, it should be easy too. So the moment that you feel like it's not easy, or it's not fun, or it's super annoying to do, is when the content that you create isn't going to be inspired, and it's probably not going to be something that the viewer or the audience is going to want to read. It's just going to be something that, you know, you churned out because you feel like you had to do it. So you should have so much to say and talk about involving your business, right? Because you're thinking about it in a place of service. Like, how can I help these people? That you're so bummed that there's only 7 days in 1 week and you can't post 10,000 times in a day, right? So that's how much ideas you should be generating in your head when you view content creation as something that is fun and enjoyable. So I'd love to hear later on how many people actually love and enjoy making content, but it should be really, really fun. So in the next section, which is...
So actually, like, why don't we stop there a minute? And in the chat, tell us, is content creation fun for you? You guys, like, I want to know, is it fun for you, or do you feel more like it's a chore? I'm not sure what to post. I'm not sure what my audience wants from me. Tell us a little bit about how you're feeling about this, because I would love to share that with Nicole as we get going, because I think that's also going to determine like how we dive deeper into like what y'all need in this time together. So if you feel comfortable, please, as we're going to go ahead and keep going a little bit, but let us know kind of how you're feeling right now about, this creating content for your social media feeds. Is it a chore? Is it fun? Is it like, I'm not even sure what I want to do? Let us know, and we'll come back to it before we start the next session. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you,
Great.
Meg.
Oh yeah.
Yes, feel free to share, guys. All right, let's get started to section 2. So speaking of, do you have fun making content? This section is really going to talk a little bit about what you might be feeling. So are you struggling with content creation specifically for social media? So it's important for us to really discuss what the issues are, what you might be feeling, so that, hey, we can try to avoid it. So in the next slide, I give you my definition for social media overwhelm, specifically for business owners. So social media overwhelm, you may hear other folks say it's called social media fatigue, but I tweak the definition a little bit more so it pertains to the business owner, is really the tendency of entrepreneurs and business owners like ourselves to really pull back, really dread, or avoid social media due to the fact that we're so overwhelmed by some of the following. Hey, there's so many platforms out there. What do I use? How do I use it? Oh my God, there's so much. 2, there's so many articles and sites that tell me I shouldn't do this, but then that article tells me I should do it. And then that article says, no, scrap all that. Don't use that social media platform altogether. Or there's always these constant talks of algorithms, right? Ugh, those algorithms, especially for Instagram, like hashtags and all that. How many hashtags should I use? Should I put it in the comments? Should I put it here? There's always these ever-changing must-do tactics. And then also, a lot of folks get overwhelmed because they feel like they have to spend this overwhelming amount of time on these platforms in order to even make a difference, right? So it's like, well, I'm busy doing my business. How am I going to devote 5 hours every day to doing this and engaging and all that? And to that point, there's also these never-ending notifications that you feel like you always have to check up on. Otherwise, you're going to miss something important, and then you have to answer a message within a certain time frame. So all of these things, whether you feel 1, 2, 3, 4, all of them, can lead folks to feel like, oh, social media is so overwhelming, I can't even deal with it. So in the next slide, I talk a little bit about social media paralysis, which is also something else that I kind of see happening, which is tied into social media overwhelm. So here, you fear and avoid social media. So overwhelm is more about the actual action of posting things or doing things, right? So this, you're intimidated by social media. And what I mean by that is, you know that social media has this immense power, right? Like you're right, you should be on social media if you're a business, and especially if your target is living on social media, right? So 1, you get so nervous by that idea that you second guess what you post, right? So you spend an increased and overwhelming amount of time on content creation, more than you should, because you're always second guessing whether or not you can say this or that, or if this graphic is good, or you should switch it up to something else. Or there's complete inaction because you're like, well, I'm so nervous that if I post something and someone doesn't like it, they might do a comment, and then my business is like, has the worst reputation ever, right? So all of these feelings are caused because, as I mentioned, the intimidation factor. You also understand and appreciate the power of social media, but you're not really sure how to use or leverage that power. Maybe because there's so many different pieces of information out there, you don't know what to listen to. So, as I mentioned earlier, you accept that social media is a tool to establish your reputation, but that idea is freaking you out, right? Because you know your reputation is at risk and you feel like you don't have any control. And last but not least, there's also a fear of imperfection that plays into it. You know, every caption has to be perfect, every emoji needs to be perfect, the graphic needs to match all the other graphics, and it has to be absolutely perfect. If it's not, then you kind of back away from it. So those are two things, and I'd love to hear in the chat if you've ever felt, if you're comfortable sharing any one of these things and it's kind of caused you to dread posting. So on the third slide.
Well, we have, real quick, I just thought I would give you just some of the things people have said so far. So Jules said when it comes to content creation, she really loves it the more she actually gets more comfortable with like Canva and later the different apps that are out there. Kelly mentioned that she goes through waves where she feels really inspired and can crank out content, but then other times she really struggles and can kind of feel lost along the way. I think we can all relate to that. Shay says she enjoys making content and editing pictures and videos. And then Stephanie said she gets uncomfortable with the feed overview feeling mismatched.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's interesting that nobody really mentioned like caption content. It was all kind of visual, which is interesting to me. Not that that's bad. I just think it's interesting. But anyway.
I agree. So we're going to talk about those tools. Jules, I know you mentioned Canva and later and things like that. And then Kelly, you also mentioned about, you know, you feel inspired sometimes, then sometimes you don't. Trust me, I go through it as well. So in some of my steps that I'll talk about later, the goal is to give yourself a very stress-free, stressless process so that you give yourself the time to be inspired. So you're not always cranking out things like at the last minute. And then you're like, oh, I have to go make it this meeting. Okay, here, let me post it. And then you have the time and then the rest is inspired. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but thank you guys so much for sharing. All right. So in the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about, you know, when you do feel overwhelmed or when you do want to avoid social media, you might tend to think or observe your competitor or other influencers out there and think like, what do they have that I don't, right? Like, why can't I do this? Like, why do they make it look so easy? And I'm not saying that these are possible causes, but for everyone, but I have found that if you don't have a firm grasp on who your brand is, for instance, you don't know what your key messaging is. You don't know what your tone of voice is. You don't know who your target consumer is. And all of those things that are super crucial before you execute to have established, then you tend to not know what to say and feel less inspired. So secondly, it might be because you don't have complete conviction in your brand message, which I mentioned earlier, but also you may lack confidence in your purpose and the quality of your content. So you might not know exactly what goal your posts or your content is there to help you achieve. So you kind of feel lost in a way. In the same vein, you know, if you're learning how to use graphics, you're not a graphic designer, I'm not a graphic designer, right? So we use these tools and we get stressed with the feed, right, of things looking perfect. We're like, oh, does this graphic look good? Like, you don't have that confidence just to say, yep, this is on point. And then the last two bullets kind of relate to each other. So you might not have that confidence or that conviction because you're kind of posting just for the sake of posting, right? So there's not a clear there's no clear alignment between your marketing, whether it's social media or any sort of digital marketing that you're doing, and your actual business goals for that specific time for the year, whatever the case may be. And last but not least, you don't have an overarching content strategy that really serves as the framework for all of the content that you are putting out there. So in the next slide, I simply say you can sometimes feel social media overwhelm or paralysis by looking at your business's social media pages with the same lens as your personal page. Thereby, you're implementing processes that simply won't work. So what I mean by this is the following. So if any of you follow my personal social media page, it is pretty much a feed consisting of my son and my dog. And that's it. There's no rhyme or reason for what I post. My captions simply say, we went pumpkin picking this weekend. Like, I don't put any thought to what I'm posting. And also, when I do post, it's usually, oh, I took a really nice picture today at the orchard. Let me post it right now, right? There's no plan, there's no strategy, I'm just doing it. So if I approach my business page with that same mindset, where I'm doing something as it happens, or I'm not planning ahead, or I don't have a specific purpose for why I'm posting something, you can get a little stressed out. You can start to feel like you're just scrambling and you're reacting, and you feel like you're doing something just for the sake of doing it. So your content isn't going to feel inspired. So it's really important to kind of look at your business page from a different lens so that you're not dealing with those stresses when you're actually needing to post. Does that make sense? Hopefully that makes sense for everybody. All right. So the next slide is section 3. So we are going to get into the nitty-gritty of content strategy. So the goal here is to remove confusion and add conviction. So we already talked about what is content, what you might be feeling pertaining to content right now, especially to social media. And now I want to really share with you what content strategy actually is and how you can use it to really elevate your social media, especially during Q4. So the next slide is the definition of content strategy. So it's getting the right content to the right people in the right place at the right time, and drum roll please, to achieve your business goals. That is key here, okay? You do not have a content strategy if your content is not attached to your business goals. That just means you're posting content, okay? But you have a content strategy if you know exactly why you're posting it and how it's going to support your current business goals for your company or organization. So in the next slide, I kind of just reiterated what I said earlier. You know, your content on any platform, whether it's a blog, anything, video, YouTube, especially on social media, should support your business goals. So the best way to look at it is quality over quantity. So doubling your content or posting 5 times a day as opposed to 2 times a day on Instagram doesn't always equate to double the customers. Your content has to actually mean something to the people reading it. So just because you're doubling it up doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to give you the results that you want. That said, by developing a content strategy, you can really cut down on the amount of time you spend on social media, which I'm sure we probably all want to do. And you're also increasing your impact because you have the proper data and the knowledge to know what kind of content and to produce, and also when to post it and all that jazz to reach your target consumer. And last but not least, you're going to get that confidence so that you're not scared anymore to post, and you're going to feel like everything that you post is going to be inspired and meaningful to you. So the next slide is some content strategy misconceptions. So the first one is that you can borrow another business's strategy and use it as your own and be equally as impactful and successful. So this is pretty important. Every business is different, right? So if you're looking at your local competitors, your business is different than theirs. If you're looking at it nationally, it's even more different. So it is pretty difficult for you to just copy and paste and expect the same results. So I will give an example. So if you are a boutique here in St. Louis or anywhere, and you specialize in like prom wear or like wedding gowns or things like that. And then you just go to the Kleinfeld web or Instagram and take a look at what they're posting and just replicate that for your business. And then you expect these great numbers or the same kinds of engagement. So one, New York City is different than here, just like Florida brides and Maine brides are different, and the venues are different. So you can't really just copy and paste that strategy. You really need to hone in on who your target consumer is, your market, to craft something that's uniquely yours. The second piece is that a content strategy is a content calendar. So I get this a lot and I hear it a lot that, hey, if I just plan out exactly what I want to post and when I want to post it, then that means I have a strategy because I know exactly what to do. So I'll explain a little bit later how that differs. A content calendar actually supports and is part of your strategy, but it is not one and the same. Also, I just wanted to point out as well that content doesn't exist in isolation. So it's not just building your content calendar and then writing the content, having a blog and all of that stuff. You need to tie all of these things to your overall business goals in order for it to work and to give you the results that you want, okay? So content strategy yields immediate results. So content strategy is something that you do to build relationships with your customers. So just like any relationship, you know, it takes time to grow, to flourish. So it's really unlikely for someone to make an immediate purchase after seeing a piece of your content, usually their research or whatever the piece may be. And your strategy is constantly evolving and getting more and more refined. So it's not kind of like a one and done thing. And last but not least, one misconception is that content strategy is about your audience only. How do I create content that is great for them? That is your content that you're producing, but your strategy is the content you're producing that's going to help you achieve your goals. So it's not just about your audience, it's also about you. Like, what content can you produce that's going to help you with your goals for Q4? Or what's the content that's going to help you achieve your goals for the holiday season? So it's not just about them, it's about what is going to help you with your business. All right. Oh my God, we're only up to slide 19. I will get faster. Okay, so why is content strategy important and why do you need it? So content strategy promotes alignment between your business objectives and the content you publish, so the content supports the overall cause. So you know exactly why you're creating or posting something, and you also feel really confident in your purpose, so which ties into the second bullet. So content strategy enables you to speak with conviction. So let me give you an example. Have you guys ever thought about having a Facebook ad, right? And then you go into the Facebook interface and it's like really scary. As we all know, that Facebook ads manager is scary. So you ever spend money on it and you don't really know your overall goals with the ad. You don't really know what it's supposed to do or go towards, but you know, because of all of the, you know, information that's being thrown at you, that you should use this ad. So you're not 100% confident in this marketing tactic, but you feel like you have to do it, right? So you're not as confident in the actual execution. So you're unable to speak with actual conviction and confidence. So it's really important to have this alignment between your objectives and your goals, because you know exactly why you're doing it, how to do it, and it's going to give you that sense of, what is that word I'm looking for? I'm going to say confidence again, confidence to really go out there and execute these tactics. And also, you're not going to be as weary with the time and money that you spend, because you know your goal and you know exactly how to get there. And last but not least, it's important to have a content strategy because it helps you establish key performance indicators, which are KPIs, and your return on investment. So similar to what I mentioned earlier, if you have a clear content strategy, you know what your money is going towards, and you know what your time is going towards, and what your content is going towards. So you know, if you spend X amount on an ad and you get X amount back in return in purchases, then you know that you achieved that goal and you're probably going to keep doing ads, right? But if you don't have a clear strategy, you're kind of going at it blind and kind of just reaching for the next shiny thing. All right, the next slide. So my goal here with this workshop is to really help you refine a content strategy and make the social media process easier for you, because your time is valuable. So the time you spend or waste on one purposeless task is time that you could have spent on a potential revenue driver. So those 5 hours you spend trying to figure out social media, well, you could have spent those 5 hours out there in front of your store meeting customers, or going to a workshop like this or something along those lines. Is going to help you gain more revenue. So the less time you spend on something, or the more time you spend or waste on something that you're not really sure what you're doing it for, the less money you could be making, right? So in summary, a content strategy gives you direction, so you're not, quote, all in on the next big thing or purchasing yet another course. So the content strategy is going to give you an idea of where exactly you want to invest your time. So you're not just signing up for the newest, social media platform because people said you should, or purchasing another course from someone who tells you you have to do it this way so that you can get 3 times more followers and increase your revenue and make 6 figures, right? So what's important to note here is execution leads to results. We all know that. So when you start making things live and really talking to your customers, obviously it's going to lead to results. But you can't execute until you know exactly what you're doing and what you want to achieve. So in this process, I'm going to help you figure out what you want to achieve so that all of your content is going to support your overall goals.
Nicole, I am so thankful that you brought up this whole subject in here, because all the time, people come to me and they're just like, no, I just want to know, like, what do I need to do right now? It's like, well, what are your goals?
Right.
Forget that. I just want to know what I need to do. Well, you're wasting time. If you can't articulate what your business goals are, you don't know, you are just kind of winging it, and you're not going to get the growth that you're looking for. So I just wanted to echo what you're saying, which is echoing what I always say, which makes me so happy. You guys, we really kind of know what we're talking about with this. So I love that you're a part of this workshop. I love that you're getting this information, and please, please, please take this to heart, because this could be a difference maker for your entire fourth quarter and then starting off 2021 really well. So, all right. That's all. I just wanted to echo. Yeah.
Goals. I mean, I think I said business goals 40,000 times. So this is what content strategy, what's important with a content strategy. And ultimately it's what's going to separate you from your competitors who are just posting content. You got
it.
Right.
Yep.
So, all right. So let's get into my 5 steps. Okay. So my 5 steps to developing a social media content strategy. So this is going to enable you to know what to do and know what's working. So as I mentioned earlier, if you Google anything these days, right, you're going to get, 100+ pages of articles, blogs, or whatever. So my goal with these five steps is to simplify it for you. And I know that these steps are going to work for your business, because you are not wasting your time on things that you probably don't need to do, right? We all want to be Nike one day, but we're not. So we're not going to go and do all of these things that Nike does that isn't going to help us right here and right now. So these are those 5 steps, and hopefully I simplify these really complex and vague terms and ideas into something that you can implement for your business. So the next slide is what impacts your content strategy. Okay, first one, obvious. Who is your customer, right? Your ideal customer and their behaviors will impact the strategy that you go with to achieve your goals, right? The second one, the platforms you select, and I put in parentheses, and enjoy to use as your primary tools for content delivery. So I think some folks probably disagree with me on this, but in my opinion, if you do not enjoy posting the content that you're posting, people are going to tell. So just because everyone says, hey guys, Reels is the next best thing, you need to be on Reels, and everyone is posting Instagram Reels of them like singing and dancing and all that, and then you feel like, oh, I guess I have to post that. You don't, okay? If you don't feel comfortable, or if it's not on brand for you, in my opinion, you don't have to do it. There's other ways to utilize these different platforms and tactics that fit with your brand message and fit with who you are. It's really important for you to feel comfortable when you're producing content, especially when you're on camera, because people are going to tell. And if you're not comfortable, chances are, right, you're probably not going to do it. So I discovered I'm really awkward when I'm in front of camera doing like a funny reel, right? It's just like not my thing. So I'd rather switch it up and use Reels in a different capacity so that it fits my brand and it's not making me feel uncomfortable, right? So last but not least, your bandwidth, resources, budget, and priorities. So what I'm going to walk you through today is it's really, when I walk you through these things today, it's really important for you to think that there is no one magic formula, right? If one person posts 5 times a day, great. But if you are super, super busy and you can't post 10, 5, 20,000 times a day, be cognizant of your bandwidth and your resources and also your budget. So the moment that it becomes a job and a chore and you don't want to do it because, oh, it's going to take me 5 hours to produce 9 posts today, you're not going to feel inspired, and chances are you're not going to want to do it. All right. So step 1, strategize. We touched upon this earlier, right? Linking content with your business goals. So in the next slide, I kind of go a little bit deeper. So the way you're going to separate yourself from the competition, especially during this time, is knowing the larger business goal that you're trying to achieve and why, and more importantly, tying your content with these overarching business goals. Without these 2 points, you don't have a content strategy at all. You just have content. Okay, you're just posting content for the sake of posting content. There's no actual purpose for it. Okay, so let me give you an example. So for the key takeaway, the right content for the wrong purpose will not yield the results you're looking for. So an example that kind of ties to that is if you are a bakery, for instance. You have a small shop, it's really small, it's family owned, it's just you, etc. So the holidays are approaching and you really, really want to try to push pre-orders, right, for higher priced items. So cakes, big cakes that would be perfect for our Thanksgiving or Christmas, like pies, like those are the things that you really want to promote because obviously your profit margin is better. And, you can kind of keep track of how much revenue you're making. So those are the things that you want to focus on for Q4. But then you post, all your content is posting what your menu is right now and the sweets that you currently have in your store, right? So this week we have X, Y, and Z. So your content is amazing, but it's not exactly helping you achieve your bigger goal of increasing pre-orders of larger cakes and pies or doing big catering events for companies or things like that. Because your content is telling a totally different message than what your actual real business goal is. You're focused on those walk-in buyers, but you're not really sharing information or enticing people to want to use you for holiday catering or these large business events. So that's what I mean. Like internally, you could have this other goal, but then your content isn't reflecting what that goal actually is. And hopefully that makes sense for everybody. But if you have any questions, feel free to ask them. So the next slide are some key questions that you can ask yourself. So 1, why do I need to create content on social media to help me accomplish my goal? Like, why do I need social media in the first place when I'm doing this? So you also need to think as far as what your current problems are. So if I'm approaching Q4, what are my problems? What do I need to do in Q4 to make my numbers or to save enough money for that vacation? I mean, obviously when COVID ends, but you know what I mean? What are my current problems, or what are things I want to achieve? And then conduct a content audit. So what that means is scroll your social media. So what content do you post now? Where are the gaps? What can be improved? What do you do really well? What's missing? And what content can separate you from the competition? If you are trying to sell these, large orders for cakes and pies, if your competition is posting this kind of content about pies and cakes, how can you switch it up and be original so that you can separate yourself from them? And then last but not least, really focus on what you're struggling with the most. We're all business owners, right? So we all try to do too much too soon and want to do everything at once, right? I do it all the time, and my team has to be like, pump the brakes. You just said you wanted to do this, and now you want to do this now. Like, figure out what you want to do, right? So for this exercise, I really urge you to focus on one top priority goal and zero in on that goal and create content that's going to support that goal. Okay, so the content cycle needs to start somewhere, right? Before you even start thinking about ideas for your content, it needs to start somewhere, and it needs to start with your business goal. I think I've said business goal 40,000 times, but it's so critical and so important. The next step is filter. So first strategize, now filter. Now we need to determine the platforms that cater to your audience, your people, that will help you achieve your business goals. So the next few slides are actually, they can also be grouped with strategize, but I just included them in filter because it flowed better. But step 2A is finding your target audience. So as I mentioned earlier, your content strategy is there to help you achieve your goals, but the actual content that you put out there and make live should show your audience how you, either your product or your service, can help them achieve theirs, right? So when we're doing all this strategizing and planning, we're trying to figure out what content is going to be, help us, with our business goals. But then the content that we shell out there and we share with people should show how our business will help them and solve their problems. Like, what could be of value to our audience that we can share? So in doing this, you really have to know your audience inside and out. So who will you reach with your content, and what value will your content provide them? So what questions can you answer? And I'll share some content thought starters and things like that later, so do not worry, and with the questions and such. This whole process will help you understand what content you need to deliver and produce that will help your audience. So I'll give another example. So hopefully these examples kind of bring things to life. So let's say your business caters to budget brides, right? So these brides are all about DIY, their budgets aren't too huge with dresses and things like that. So maybe your content includes posts on how to save money on a wedding, or DIY tips and tricks, things like that, that your target audience is going to crave and is going to want. But you're not going to know to produce that kind of content if you have zero idea who your target audience is, right? So it's really important to start there first before you go and start ideating and creating all of your content buckets. The next slide, this is fun, is creating your customer persona. So now that you've gotten a lot of this data on your target audience, and don't worry, later I will share some ways in which you can obtain information on your target audience. So I will help you with that. After you do that, create a customer persona. So this is what's going to help you really get in their head, and it's going to help you figure out the kind of content that you need to make. So by saying I'm creating a customer persona, I name customer personas. Like my target client or my client's target clients are all named, and it's like I'm Dr. Frankenstein creating a person, right? So you're identifying their defining attributes. So sample persona details could be demographic, their needs and objectives, communication preferences, buying behaviors, et cetera, et cetera. So for example, again, my target audience, and this is where you get really detailed, right? My target audience, my target gal could be, her name is Sasha. She loves shopping at Madewell and Macy's. She what she does over the weekend, she has brunch with her friends, and I'm totally making this up on the spot, guys. She has 2 dogs, and she considers her dogs like her best friends, and will spend any amount of money on accessories for them, right? She considers them her child. She loves going on Instagram, but she doesn't really like buy things from Instagram. Instead, she likes to look at the latest magazine. So this is how like detailed you can get, and you're literally making up a person. But during this exercise, you're getting to know your person so well, and it's going to help you figure out like what kind of content you can make that's going to speak to them. So it's really fun. And then last but not least, my tip at the bottom is really focusing on one audience persona to start. So if you're focusing on Q4 sales, for instance, you could have a variety of different customers. But it's really important so that you don't overwhelm yourself is to focus on just one for this exercise. So think about the audience that you can really assist the most, or think about the audience that gives you the most opportunity to achieve your goal, or the audience that you've struggled with in the past that you just can't connect with. So focus on these folks that you are not trying to create strategies for a variety of different people. Just focus on one thing at a time. The second slide, or the next slide, is now identifying your target's social media behaviors. So by identifying their behaviors, what time they're online, how they perform, or what content resonates with them, how often do they engage, you are able to filter all of the other social media platforms that's not going to work for you. So you're able to focus on the ones that will successfully deliver the right content to your audience. So some questions for you to ask is, which platforms do they frequent? Where do they digitally live? Which platforms serve your purpose? So by knowing this information ahead of time, if there's a new platform that comes out and everyone's talking about it, it's all the rage, and you look at it and you look at the statistics and things like that, and you're like, my person doesn't live there, then you don't have to be on it. So it's one platform that you don't have to worry about. So it's really important to know this information so that you don't get overwhelmed by feeling like you have to have accounts for like every social media platform that is out there. So lastly, I say on this slide, how do you find this information? Well, I will share that with you in the final section. Step 3 is categorize. So we're kind of transitioning into the execution phase. So we've gotten a lot of our data, we figured out what our goal is and how we're going to utilize content to support our goal. So now we're going to create content pillars to serve as guides for our content. So by creating these content pillars, it's going to help take time off of, the time you already spent on creating content. And it's also going to make sure that everything that you produce for your social media platforms are on brand and are going to help you achieve your goals. Okay, so it's going to lower that overwhelm, the paralysis, the social media fatigue that we talked about earlier, because again, you have a plan. So the next slide, I kind of reiterate what I just said. So by organizing your content into pillars or buckets, categories, whatever you want to call them, I call them content pillars myself, that support your overall brand message, you're creating a framework that'll set you up for success and guarantee you're keeping your content simple, streamlined, and crystal clear for your audience. So it keeps you organized and confident, and you know that you're posting content that supports your brand message and goal. So what's important here to note is that clarity is key. So the moment you start confusing your audience with your content and what you stand for and who your audience is and the services and products you provide, you've lost them, right? They're like confused with who you are, and they're going to gravitate towards someone that they can actually understand and relate to. So it's really important to have your content pillars in place. So having content pillars also guarantees that you're not a last minute poster, if that makes any sense. So you're not someone who's like, oh, it's noon. Okay, what am I going to post about right now? And then you decide that you're going to post something right on the spot. So usually when we do that, not guaranteeing that one, what we are posting is on brand, or two, it supports our overall strategy, right? When you utilize content pillars and you plan ahead of time, you know that you're staying on brand and you're not scrambling at the last minute. So what I've highlighted here on this slide is that your content should challenge your audience's current way of thinking. So on the next slide, I'm gonna kind of elaborate on that. So when we're looking at Q4 and you're thinking about your marketing, social media strategies and things like that for the holidays or this buying period, the one thing I kind of want you to walk away with is it's a very difficult time right now, you know, with the current climate, with COVID and all of that jazz. So there's lots of things going on in people's heads, maybe doubts about spending money or whatever the case may be, fears and things like that. So the goal of your content is to anticipate every possible question your audience will have and answering them in your content. Basically, posting content that answers your audience's question before they've even asked them, because you're trying to change the way they think and reevaluate their current misconceptions about certain things. So the 3 steps to creating content pillars is 1, know who you're speaking to, aka your customer persona, and we kind of talked about that earlier. So along with what I mentioned about really thinking about every possible question, it's also important to go beyond the surface. And what I mean by that is whether you are a product-based business, a service-based business, whatever the case may be, I urge you when you're thinking about your customer to go deeper, to really get to know them and think about what other deep frustrations do they have, okay? And let me give you an example. So in Q4, during the holidays, and obviously the crazy times that we're in right now, they have fears, doubts, and questions about certain things, right? So if you're selling jewelry, for instance, we want to determine who this person is and what might be worrying her, right? So could it be she won't have the time because she is taking care of homeschool, right? She's homeschooling her kids. She has to take care of her business. She has to do this, but she has all these gifts that she needs to take care of, and she doesn't have time to go shopping, right? So maybe that's one thing that's on your ideal customer's mind that's scaring her about the holiday season and she needs help with. Hey, so why don't we tap into that, and why don't we tell this ideal customer, hey, we curate the best jewelry for you. We do free shipping. You know, you can go to our website and we have our full inventory of jewelry for you to choose from, so that we can make holiday shopping 10 times easier for you, because we know you're a busy working mom. Right, that is just an idea that I came up with now. But the point is, the obvious surface level need of your customer, if you're selling jewelry, could be, I need jewelry, right? That's the simplest need that he or she may have. But I urge you to go deeper in that and to think about what else could be on their mind and how your product and service can help them. So this kind of thinking is applicable whether you are service or product-based business, is going a lot deeper and really getting to know your ideal customer to figure out what questions they have and how you can answer them. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So I also wanted to remind everyone that this process isn't linear. So when you are creating content, it needs to be diverse and robust, because as I mentioned in the beginning, your audience could be coming to you at a variety of different areas on the sales funnel or the buying process. So they could have never heard of you and they need an introduction to who you are and what you offer. Or they might be familiar with you, but they're not sure whether or not to choose you or your competitor. So you need to kind of give them a diverse range of content so that it is applicable to all the different people that are visiting your social media pages. So all of that I just said actually ties into step 2 with creating content pillars. I got distracted a little bit and got really passionate about that deep frustration piece. But the second stage is jotting down ideas for content based on your persona's problems, which I mentioned earlier. And then once you jot down all of those ideas, look at all of those ideas that you come up with and try to separate them. Try to search for commonalities, categories, and start separating them into different content buckets. And I will share an example with you later to see how this kind of comes to life. But I also wanted to share some kind of content thought starters for you when you're thinking about, you know, things to post on your social media, and captions and things like that. So think about what are some common issues your persona or your ideal client deals with on a day-to-day basis, right? What are some things that they're doing wrong or they're totally missing, okay? And how can your product help them? So what are some feelings and emotions that are attached to their problems? So again, we're trying to build a relationship here. So we're trying to build trust. So you want your audience to feel like you get them. You started this business because you get them and you want to serve them and you want to help them. And one way that you can establish that trust is by telling them, hey, I feel you. I empathize with you. I've been there too. What are some limiting beliefs they have? What are they currently thinking now that is completely wrong, right? And you're there to kind of help them and guide them so they can think the right way. Well, I'm sure their thinking is right, but change the way they are thinking. Sorry. So pleasures. So what is it like if they were to fix those mistakes, right? So if they were to change some of their beliefs or limiting beliefs with your help, what does life look like for them, right? What are some things about your business? What are some great things about your products and the things that you offer that is going to help them solve their issues? What are the results you're going to help them achieve? So that content could, take form or manifest as client testimonials, reviews, things like that, so that you have tangible evidence of how you've helped people, right? So maybe you want to share your why, right? You want to tell people why you started this business. What are your values? What's your mission? So that they can see if that's their mission or if they have the same values as you, and then they'll trust you a little bit more, right? So that's really key. Also positioning. So what are some things that separate you from the competition? So what do they do that maybe you do better? Or what do they do that you do differently and will help a different type of audience, right? And then what are the pieces of your story that's really going to resonate with your target audience? What message do you want to share with them? So when you're jotting down all of these ideas, kind of look at the commonalities and really start to kind of separate them out, and you'll actually see content pillars and content buckets starting to form based off of your story and how you want to serve and help your customers. So in step 4, we are fully in execution stage, right? So we've strategized, we've filtered, we've categorized everything. So we're actually ready to make things happen. So we're going to produce content based on our strategy and create a monthly plan of attack. And by stage 4, we're super confident because we know that everything we're going to create from here on out is to support our overall goal for this time period or for this year, right? So in the next slide, this actual step is create, plan, and post. And the first thing we want to do is create a simple and 100% doable process to plan and create content in advance. I just want to mention that the process is unique to you. Like what works for me might not work for you. How you organize things or keep track of things could be completely different than somebody else. So you need to find a process that works for you, okay? So that it's not stressful and you'll actually want to do it. So you can create a weekly or monthly social media content calendar if that works for you. But the key here is to stick to it. So you really have to be realistic with yourself as far as how much time you can allot to doing social media and sticking to that time frame. So if you decide, hey, I think I could spend 3 hours a week on my social media and I'm comfortable with that, great. But don't overinvest. Don't overpromise, because then that's when it gets stressful. So just think about what your life is like and make something work for you. And then the third bullet is do some research and look at your social media analytics right now, if you have been posting, to uncover the ideal posting frequency for your audience and the platform. So you're going to go and Google and find research, and it's going to say you need to post X amount of times on Pinterest or on TikTok or on XYZ in order to make an impact. You have to do it. You have to. Already that's like stressful, right? When someone tells you you have to do something. So think about what's realistic for you, okay? It's great to take advice, obviously, from marketing experts and things like that, but I'm also aware that we're all busy. We all have businesses to run. So I think there's a happy medium between posting all day and being on social media all day and getting your message across and still having a life, right? So one great way to do that is to look at your own audience. If you go on Instagram, for instance, you can go to Insights and you can see, the demographics of your audience, the times that they're usually on, the times that, the best posting times for your content. So take a look at that and then adjust your schedule accordingly so that you know that you are making the biggest impact for the time that you are spending on social media. So as I said, reminder, be cognizant of your bandwidth. And then lastly, set aside blocks of time, weekly, bi-weekly, or monthly, to schedule your posts. So the important piece here is before you even get scheduling or planning, you already have an idea of how much time you can and will allot to social media way ahead of time so that you can incorporate it into your weekly, bi-weekly or monthly schedule, so that one, it's going to be done, and two, that for that time period you are focusing on social media and you're going to shut off notifications, do all that. You are focusing on social media and you're going to have a good time with it. So the more you do ahead of time, the less stressed you're going to feel. What we want to do here is avoid on the spot, last minute posting, because that's when we get off message and when we get stressed out. So the next slide is kind of like a sample weekly content calendar. And this was for a client. So obviously we blocked out some of the strategies and things like that, but this is something simple, right? So if you're really scrambling with what you want to post and you don't have a ton of time, separate your days into content buckets so that on Monday, this is the kind of content you want to post. On Tuesday, this is the type of content you want to post, and so on. So that when you're planning your social media content, you're not sitting there like twiddling your thumbs thinking about, okay, what will work, what won't work, so that you have a steady stream of content in your toolbox, and then you know exactly what to do and when to do it. So last but not least is step 5, which is analyze. And this is a step that a lot of folks forget or leave out. And it's actually probably one of the most important steps. And this is ongoing, okay? In the next slide, you'll kind of see a graph here. So as I mentioned earlier, execution leads to results. And you can't execute until you have a strategy, right? That's guiding your execution, so you know exactly what to do and why you're doing it. So the process of creating your strategy is a cyclical process. So your strategy leads to execution, which leads to results. And then the results that you get and the data you get from all of your posting and all of the social media activity you've been doing is going to revise your strategy, right? So that it's more refined and it's even better than the strategy you had before. So it's an evolving process. So for those of you who subscribe to Tailwind, to Later, to Planoly, to scheduler apps, to those of you who have business profiles, especially if you're paying to be on these scheduler to have the scheduler software and applications, you're paying for analytics. So take advantage of it. Look at it as much as you can and see what posts are working, see what posts aren't working. See what hashtags are working, right? Because you don't want to waste your time on a hashtag that's not giving you the engagement that you want. So use the analytics that you have in your fingertips, and in some cases you're paying for, to really refine your strategy so that it works even better for you next time, okay? In the next slide, I kind of dive a little deeper. So you'll learn the content types that's going to resonate with your audience, and you'll be able to get feedback from customers, prospects, the public. That's going to help you revise and refine your strategy. For those of you who spend a lot of time, like what I think, Kelly, you mentioned, like you're like inspired and then all of a sudden you're not, and then you're inspired again. Have you ever like started posting for a long period of time and you were so passionate about something and you got such great feedback from your followers and you're like, oh, that kind of content's going to work. So these are the kinds of things that you're going to get and that you're going to change. And maybe you're going to post more types of content based off of all of the great positive feedback you're getting, right? So it's really important for you to do step 5 continuously so that your content strategy gets better and better. And then initially, when you're doing all of these steps, you're obviously writing down what your content strategy is, but then you're going to continue to refine it as time goes by. So the next slide is a tip. So you can create an overarching content strategy that really governs all your platforms and forms of content. So if your goal is get more foot traffic to my store, right? You can create a content strategy that supports that goal, and you can just kind of pinpoint which platforms you're gonna utilize for that goal and not get too specific. But I also recommend doing specific strategies per platform. So that, because obviously each platform has different rules, has different algorithms and all of that jazz. So you want to create different strategies for each of those that's going to help you really reach the most the most people, and it's going to make the content creation process a lot easier. All right. So the next slide is see everything come to life. So I know I said a lot of things in this section. So I really kind of wanted to take a real world example and show you how these 5 steps come to life and help you build a strategy that you can kind of work off of. So in the next slide, I have this graph, I guess, or this image that I did that kind of shows you how this whole thing works. So at the top, it's your business goal. Remember, right? Because any sort of content strategy starts with a business goal. So as you go down, you're going to hit the audience behavior filter. So with this audience behavior filter, you're going to think about who you're going to reach, who's your audience, what value will it provide them, where do they digitally live. Once you get all of that information, and I'll share how you get that information later, you can really filter which social media tools are right for you. Which platforms should you be on to reach those people? And then once you do that, you're gonna go through the execution filter. So how does your audience behave on each platform? How often and when should you post to make an impact, right? What content in the past has resonated with your target audience, has given you the most likes or given you the most comments. And then once you decide that, then you're kind of in brainstorm mode, right? So you're doing all this work, brainstorming great content and solidifying your content pillars, which will guide you moving forward and help streamline the process for you and give you a framework. And once you figure out those content pillars, hey, let's break out and figure out the content types. What can I produce? What am I good at? What can I outsource so that I create compelling content that people are going to want to engage with? So we'll see this come to life in the example in the next slide. So let's have an example business. Let's say we're an online clothing boutique, okay? The next slide kind of shares our story. So we're an online clothing boutique that just launched. We launched our new website, which allows customers to buy styles online. We curate clothing and accessories from up-and-coming designers from all over the world. The clients are very excited, but have been struggling with traffic as they've relied on Facebook Live, pop-up events, and direct messages to sell their one-of-a-kind pieces curated from all over the world. So they're well aware that they need to use social media to grab people's attention, generate buzz, and get more website sales. So people are creatures of habit, right? So up to this point, all they know is if I want to buy clothes from this online clothing boutique, I need to stay tuned for their Facebook Live. I need to look at their Instagram for their latest, inventory and claim it, right? So that's what they're used to. But this business just invested in an awesome new website. So they want people to start, obviously, going to the website, right? So that is their main goal. So in the next slide, you'll kind of see how the process comes to life. So on the left, you'll see a bunch of different social media platforms for us to choose from. So these just exist, right? So the first box is our goal. So the goal for this online clothing boutique is to increase website traffic. That is their primary goal right now. So when they sift through and do the applicable research on their audience, they look at their behaviors, who's been buying from them in the past, right? They do customer surveys, whatever the case may be. They realize, hey, our target are 16 to, I'm making this up, 36-year-olds. A majority of them are in that age range. So then we do some more research and we figure out, hey, our audience is primarily on these platforms. So we've filtered all of those platforms on the left and we've decided, hey, let's do Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, and Pinterest. Those are the platforms that we want to focus on to get the word out about our great new website. So in the execution strategies filter, that's when we kind of talk a little bit more about, okay, what are their habits? What content has resonated and worked for us in the past? Should we continue to produce this kind of content? Should we get rid of that content? Things of that nature. And then once you get through that filter, this is when you start going, okay, we figured out what we want to do. Let's create offshoot strategies. All right, when we use Facebook, how do we want to use Facebook to do this? What kind of content can we produce? What kind of content pillars can we produce on Facebook? Is it going to be the same pillars on Instagram? Is it going to be the same on Pinterest? How do we change the content that we produce to support our overall goal, but it's going to work for that particular platform? And then once we figure out those individual strategies, then we kind of figure out, okay, what content are we going to do? Let's do videos. Let's do flat lays. Let's do a web series that we're going to do on YouTube. Let's do rich pins for Pinterest so that people can go to our website. Let's do influencer takeovers so that, they can use their reach to, tell everyone about our brand new site and all of the cool outfits that we have coming up. But the whole goal here is when we're going through this process is that we're driving everyone to our website. So we're using blog posts, we're pushing product pages. So everything that we're producing, all the content that we're promoting on social media is going to drive people to our website and to content that we've produced on the site to increase the website traffic. Does that make sense? So we're not just saying, hey, everyone, we got a new website. We're going to tell people, hey, on Pinterest, these are the top 3 tips for how to use an oversized sweater. I just made that up. And then we're going to drive people to our website to get more website traffic. And then hopefully they'll buy the actual sweater that we're talking about. So every tactic that we're utilizing and every piece of content that we're creating, we're well aware that it has to include some link or some way for the end user to go to our website. So link in bio, hyperlinks, tease content, and push people to essentially our brand new website with all of our great new outfits. So the next slide are some sample content pillars. So this online boutique sat down, all of the stakeholders decided to do a big brainstorm, and then they created all of these great new content ideas. And then they saw that there were some similarities. So then they decided, hey, let's create, these are our content pillars, and all of the content that we produce are gonna fit under one of these content pillars. So we know that we're staying on brand, but we're also pushing people to our website. So a sample pillar could be this just in. So we're going to create outfit flat lays. We're going to do model pictures. We're going to use Instagram Reels and do those cool videos of people changing outfits. But we also want people to, based on our brand, to be unique, right? Because we're really focused as a brand on getting one of a kind, unique designs from up and coming designers from outside of the US. So we want people to be proud to be wearing things that other people aren't wearing. Hey, so why don't we create some UGC or user generated content where we push people to send us videos or images of them rocking our brand new outfit? Or for the Be Unique content pillar, let's provide styling tips and videos. Let's do Instagram lives. And then last but not least, let's do know the designer features. That's our content pillar. So we're going to do content that, promotes the brands. What are the brand profiles, in designer, influencer, blog takeover. So these are just some ideas that imaginary online clothing boutique came up with. And they've decided that these are their content pillars. So on Mondays, they'll post about Be Unique. On Tuesdays, they're going to post about a designer so that they have a set schedule and know exactly what to post and when. So my tip is to think original. So if you're trying to drive people to your website, for instance, and use social media to drive people to your website or drive people to your store or whatever the case may be, you need to think of original content that's unique to you. So what's original content that's unique to your brand that you can create, and what collaborations do you currently have or relationships that you have with others that you can leverage to reach more people. So one way to think original is blogs, right? So if you are trying to increase web traffic, write a ton of blogs, right? And then promote it on your social media, use Pinterest for that very reason, and drive people to your site. So really think about what your overall goal is and how the social media is going to support your overall goal. Meg, that was a lot. So I wasn't sure if you wanted to poll or do something, because I feel like
that was a lot. And I think you might need to breathe for a second. So pulse check, everybody. How are we doing? Are y'all still with us here? We would love it if you have any questions up until now. Please go ahead and pop them real quick into the chat here. I'm going to go ahead actually and stop sharing my screen for a second, because I actually do think it's a good time for a poll. So I am going to actually, we've been talking a lot about, about content strategy, or a lot of, obviously, content strategy, but we've also been talking a lot about goals. If you've noticed, everything seems to come back to that. So my poll I have for you guys is, when it comes to your content, remember a little while back, Nicole mentioned several things that could be your goals, and it could even be all three of these. But when it comes to your content goals, are they to build brand awareness, to educate your audience, or to build trust with your audience, or all of those things? Okay, when it specifically comes to your content, and maybe up until this workshop, you hadn't really thought about it like that before. And so that's okay if this is like a whole new way of kind of thinking about your content strategy. But I will tell you, whatever your bigger business goals, you want to kind of take that and then filter that through these three different ideas of so if my overall goal for my business is to bring more traffic to my website, okay, so then through my content strategy, am I going to want to be building brand awareness, educating my audience, building trust with my audience, all of these things to make that bigger goal happen? Okay. I hope that makes sense. And I know we're going to talk deeper through all of these things. And I know you can't wait to learn all about the analytics. Don't worry, that's coming up too. Teaser, spoiler alert. But I'm going to go ahead and share this poll so you guys can see here. Most of you are all of the above, but for some of you, it's building brand awareness or building trust with your audience. And I don't know, is there anything you want to say about that, Nicole?
Yes. So it's actually interesting because as you're doing all of these things, you're somewhat also educating your audience.
For sure.
because I think part of what I mentioned earlier is we really want to answer a lot of folks' questions, right?
Yes.
That they didn't even know they had, or they're always thinking about, and that's what's preventing them from maybe clicking the buy button.
Well, and you know what? That's a really good point, Nicole. Something that I end up talking with a lot of my clients about, a lot of collective members about, is the fact that sometimes we forget, because we're in our business so much and all the time, we forget what it's like to be a customer. And so what I will tell you, one of your number one jobs through marketing for your brand is to connect these dots for your customer. And a big way you do that is through education. Okay. Sometimes as customers, we need you to tell us why we need your product, or who we're buying it for, or for what occasion, or any of those things. So that's typically a great way you can educate your audience while at the same time building brand awareness, building trust with your audience, especially as an authority. And they're going to become a brand ambassador for you, not just somebody who scrolls your feed. They're going to become a walking billboard for your brand, because you're putting those pieces together for them.
And that's the goal, right? Our goal is not to have quantity only, but quality.
I heard that somewhere. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So we're going to go back in. I'm going to share my screen again, disappear again. So we can go ahead and hop right into section 5.
Section 5. So the tools of the trade. So when I was creating this workshop, I really also wanted to not just, okay, this is what you do, but also help you with each step so that you know what you need to use and how to do some of these things that I've mentioned. So in for the next slide, in steps 1, 2, 3, which is strategize, filter, and categorize, an important tool that you can use is a brand book. And some of you, I believe I've kind of talked about brand books with earlier. It's really important to, again, solidify your brand. All of these research things that I mentioned earlier in the steps, if you create a brand book, you'll have everything in one place. You'll know exactly who your target is, what they do, what content resonates with them, who you are, what messaging you use, your tone of voice, all that jazz is in one guide. So it's going to help you with creating your content strategy on each particular platform. So once you have a clear idea of who your brand is overall, then on every platform, you can figure out how you can revise and refine and identify how your brand manifests on social media. So once you have that overall idea of your brand, then it's going to be a lot easier for you to kind of implement these strategies. So secondly, doing your research. So let's say you're like, okay, I have no idea what my customer's like. I have no idea who they are or where they live or anything like that. Survey them. I mean, give them an incentive. 5% off if you answer this quick survey. We've all gotten it, right? Give them something if you feel like it's necessary, right, to get a survey response back. But it's really important to get an idea of who your current customers are and ask them the questions that essentially you want to know, right? Use some, if you have CRM, right, as part of your kind of process. So use the information you get from there. Ask folks the right questions. Ask them to fill out, an introductory or a sheet before you start working with them or before you sell them something, so that you can get an idea of who they are as people, so that when you're doing these initial tasks of researching, you can kind of get a sense of who your target person is. Obviously, use reputable online resources. So do research. Okay, let me figure out, who Later, by the way, has great blog posts, and so does Planoly with really great social media kind of analytics on, how many people use Instagram in a day, or how many of them are female compared to male, like these kinds of demographic information that you can't find anywhere else or you can't access on your own. There's lots of really reputable organizations and websites that you can find this information on, so that you know where your person lives. Also, it's important to look at your current analytics, right? So if you're look at your website traffic, Okay, look at your Google Analytics, and it's super important to link your website to Google Analytics, folks. So just a quick tip so that you have access to all of that information. Your order forms, right? So if you get orders for your products, take a look at them, or start taking a look at them and monitoring that to see who your customer is and what type of products they buy and things like that, so you can get an idea of who they are. And obviously your social media data, and I'll kind of show you how you can access all that fun stuff later on, and see what their behaviors are, and when they're online and when you can actually reach them. So it's really important to have an idea of your brand, have an idea of who your audience is, but not just have an idea, actually have proof, right? And this is where the research and the surveys and the analytics come in, so that you can say, hey, I think my target consumer is male, and this is where they live, and this is their income, but then you're kind of just guessing, right? So it's really important for you to kind of look at all of the information that you currently have to make sure if what your guess or what your idea is matches with reality. Okay, so those are some things to help with steps 1, 2, and 3. So the next slide is step 4 for create. So Canva. So I love Canva. I know you all love Canva. Jules, you mentioned you use Canva. So I love Canva Pro. This is like the non-designer's fantastic tool to create visually and on-brand content, right? No Photoshop, none of that stuff, which I also don't know how to use. So if you don't have Canva Pro, which is the paid version, I highly recommend it for a variety of reasons. You're able to really brand everything. So you're able to upload your brand colors, your fonts, all your logos, and you kind of see it at the bottom image that I have there. So if you currently have Canva Pro and you are not using the brand toolkit, definitely, I urge you to upload all your brand information on there right now. Because it's going to help you stay on brand and that everything looks pretty cohesive and how you want it to look. So a big tip too is you can use Canva, obviously, and it's super easy to use with drag and drop and things like that. But you can also hire someone to do custom graphics, specifically to your brand, and you can upload it to Canva and manipulate it so that it's still uniquely yours. So you're never gonna go on Instagram and find that someone has the same graphics or the same aesthetic as you, but you're manipulating it on your own on a weekly or monthly basis, so that it's not that difficult for you to manage your social media. But I definitely recommend all the non-designers out there to get the Canva Pro version, upload all of your brand colors, your logos, your images, your fonts. And also if you have the budget or you're interested, to also do some custom graphics specific to your business so that it's uniquely yours. The next slide is plan and post. So I mentioned earlier that a content strategy is not a content calendar, but a content calendar is super, super important for you when you're planning out your social media posts. As I mentioned, what we're trying to avoid here is the last minute post or the scramble post. We want to make sure we know exactly what we're posting, why we're doing it, and how it supports our business goals. And a content calendar will give you a bird's eye view of all of that. So as I mentioned earlier, the process is completely uniquely yours. So if you're like me, I love typing things on a spreadsheet or seeing a calendar or having a printed calendar. That's kind of like my jazz. But then some folks also love using, list making or collaboration apps like Trello, Asana, things like that. So it's really up to you what works best. And it might be trial and error. You might find that, someone's way or my way doesn't really work for you. So it's really up to you to kind of figure that out, but it's really crucial for you to have some sort of content calendar in play when you're planning your content, especially for the holidays, so you don't miss a beat and nothing slips through the cracks. And as far as posting, and also part of planning, I guess, is a social media scheduler. So I just put Later, Planoly, and Tailwind on there. I think those are the most well-known ones. Of course, there's a ton of other ones out there, but these are key because, as we mentioned earlier, it's important for you to kind of know ahead of time what you want to post and when. And this is going to take the stress off of having to figure out what to post the day of, or missing a day because you couldn't figure it out. Doing a scheduler is really key for you to make sure that you're consistently posting, and also, like, it's kind of like set it and forget it, right? So once you schedule it and it posts, just check back in to see and do some engagement, but you're not going to be like constantly every day worrying that you're going to forget to post something. So the next slide is focused on analyze. So once you're posting, and give it a few, weeks or whatever, or a few days to kind of see what the analytics show up. So you could either use the platforms themselves to figure out your ideal or your target's kind of social media behavior. So you can kind of see, this is Halcon's Instagram. So you could either press the insights button on your business profile, or those like 3 lines on the top right, and then you'll click insights, and then you'll see a plethora of different pieces of information. So you can see obviously your follower breakdown, you can see the follows, unfollows, the top locations where they're based, right? Like, remember, it's great to use locators when you're posting, and then other, the demographic pieces, like how, are they male, female, what times are they usually on Instagram, things like that. So Facebook also has great analytics, so does Pinterest. So definitely utilize the analytics tools on the individual platforms to figure out your ideal clients, or ideal target clients or target consumers' social media behaviors. So this is going to help you to really uncover what they're doing, and you're not just guessing, right? And then the second slide for analyze, you could also use the social media schedulers themselves, which I mentioned earlier. You are paying for this when you are opting in for the paid packages for these schedulers. So use them, learn them, love them, because they are going to help shape your strategies moving forward. So I personally, for Later, and I recommend, for social media, use Later for Instagram and Pinterest. Or sorry, I use Tailwind for Pinterest, sorry. But it's a great tool because you can also see which hashtags have given you the most impressions. You can see which hashtags have given you the most engagement, so you can refine your hashtag strategy. So you have all of these great analytics and data in your fingertips, and we're very lucky to have it, because then we can not waste time on creating content that isn't going to work or people aren't really reading. So I definitely urge you guys to use the platforms and your social media scheduler analytics sections to refine your strategies.
Stephanie has a question for you. You were mentioning something about consistency with your posting. And so her question is, what do people really mean with consistency? Every day at the same time, anytime within the day? What's really meant by that?
So when I'm saying consistency, I'm saying what you decided is your frequency. So if I've decided, hey, I have the bandwidth to post every day, Monday to Sunday, X time, depending on the time that works best. So that's where the analytics comes in, guys, right? Because your people aren't always online at the same time every day. So that's when you check out your analytics to figure out when they are on your designated platform, so that you can kind of adjust accordingly. But anyway, so if I decide that I'm going to post 7 times a week, 1 time a day, then I'm keeping to that cadence, right? That's what I mean by consistency. Because some folks, you'll find they post like once a day, every day for a week or for 3 weeks. And all of a sudden, crickets, or like a month. And then they're back. And then, or they decide, okay, I'm going to post 5 days for this week. And then next week it's like one time on Monday, one time on Thursday, and then one time on Sunday. So if you decide that this is the frequency that you have the bandwidth for and it makes sense for you, then stick to it. Don't kind of fluctuate, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Thank you.
I think so, but I keep forgetting that they can't respond back. I'm like,
No, I think that answers her question, that where the strategy comes in is making sure you're looking at your analytics to see what are the behaviors and then match that up with the bandwidth that you have and be consistent with that.
correct.
Yeah. Great.
Awesome. So I have a few tools that I can kind of share with you guys. If you follow HowCon or me or follow us on Facebook, you'll probably have heard about a brand book blueprint program. So I know Jules is a brand book blueprint familia here, and she joined our program. But this is essentially going to guide you and help you through establishing all of the brand messaging you need, the content pillar, or the content, essentially content pillars that you need and all of that jazz, so that you have all of that established and it is in one firm brand book, so that you can go out and do your content strategy and it's not going to be like a piecemeal kind of thing. So I am offering $100 off for all of you participants if you are interested in doing the brand book blueprint, and obviously feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions there. And then last but not least, I have a free content calendar for you. So this is actually the content calendar that I use for HowCon, and it is the content calendar that I share with others. But as I mentioned earlier, refine it, make it your own. But what I love about this calendar is it ties your content with your purpose, which is so important, and your goal and your content pillar, so that you have everything in one snapshot and you know that the content that you're posting is for a purpose and it's supporting your overall goal. So if you're interested in kind of taking a look at that content calendar, here's obviously the link, but when Meg sends the PDF to you guys tomorrow, you'll be able to access the link there. So that's all I went over. Sorry, Meg, but hopefully this is enough time for questions.
Okay, you are fine. And actually, you guys absolutely go ahead, start putting your questions in the chat. And I'm actually, now that I'm not sharing my screen, I can go ahead and pop these links also into here right now. I also wanted to go ahead and here, wait, I obviously can't do two things at once. Let me go ahead and pop these links in here for them if they want to go ahead and take a look right now. And then I actually just want to let you guys know before we dive into the questions of just a couple things coming up with the Women's Creative. So this Sunday from 12 to 4, we have the Procure Citywide Market Crawl that we are so excited about. Vendors are going to be popping up all over the city. You guys go to our website to get the full list. And I'm actually going to put that link in the chat right now, where you guys can check that out while you're putting your questions in the chat. So then we just, for those of you that want, that are interested in popping up to sell your goods or services, we actually just put up vendor applications for Procure a Holiday Bazaar, which is going to be at 9 Mile Garden, the first 3 Sundays of November from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. So I do have the link to that application here if you wanted to go ahead and apply for that. There we go. So I went ahead and put all of those in the chat. Please absolutely go support all the things. And we would love to hear what other questions you guys have about content as we are just kind of wrapping up this workshop tonight. What sort of questions started coming to mind as you were hearing all of this information, or even moving forward? I know I would love to hear, and I know Nicole well enough to know she would love to hear this too. What are you going to take away from this and actually implement after this workshop? So like, what are your next steps starting tomorrow for making a bigger impact with your marketing strategy? I would love to know what you're going to do to start walking this out right away for your business to have the impact on your goals that you are wanting to have. So if you wouldn't mind putting your answer to that question in the chat, I know I would love to read all about it. Now, while you guys are kind of thinking about that and writing your answer in the chat, we actually do have a question from earlier from Desiree that I would love to pose to you. And that's, she said the idea of creating content is part of what's holding her back from launching her website. She's dreading it more than anything else because she doesn't know what she wants to create. So for anyone who's kind of in Desiree's boat where they're kind of like, I'm not even sure where to start with this, what sort of advice would you have for that?
So my advice is to do something like the program that I'm offering, the Brand Book Blueprint, and really figure out and establish who you are as a brand, right? Like what do you stand for? What are your values? What is your mission? And once you really figure that out, that brand book or that, brand development journey that you just went on is going to go way past beyond social media. It's going to touch your website. It's going to touch print materials. It's going to touch everything. But it's going to be difficult to kind of figure out what to say and how to say it if you don't really know who you are as a brand just yet.
Perfect. And I think really nailing that, who your audience is too, will really make a big difference, because the better you know your ideal customers, the more you know what kind of content that they're going to want or need from you. So I would really deep dive into that, your ideal customers for sure. Christina has a question. She said, thinking of the different software that posts for you, like we mentioned, we talked about Planoly and Later and, other Tailwind and all these other ones. She wondered if you feel like one has better analytics or over another.
So I used Planoly for quite some time, and then I transitioned over to Later, and I must say I love Later's analytics.
I agree. I prefer Later over all of them for the analytics specifically.
Yeah. People tend to say that Tailwind is like the Pinterest app, and I think Tailwind has great analytics as well. But I definitely love Later's analytics, and the user, it's very user friendly as well. I think a little bit more than Planoly, but I definitely suggest Later for sure.
Perfect. Thank you. Let's see. Kelly says she is definitely going to get her content calendar updated and be better about scheduling posts and content in advance.
Yeah, what I do when I'm trying to do my content calendar, I'll be honest, I just say, okay, the beginning of the month, I'm going to sit down, get my favorite candy, and play my best music, my favorite music, and just go for it.
I love it.
And as far as actually doing the posts, one of my, what I like to do is I like to design all of my graphics first and then save the captions for another day, because I feel like my brain gets overloaded with everything I'm doing.
That's a really good idea. Yes.
That's just something I do that helps me.
Well, and I would say kind of a tip that I have that helps me is I don't schedule every single post I'm going to end up putting out. I leave space when I'm planning ahead, when I'm scheduling ahead in a tool like Later. I personally love SmarterQueue as well for social media management. Anyway, I don't schedule every single post that I'm going to put up, especially on Instagram. I personally, for my brand, to keep with my values of my brand, one of them, a big one's authenticity. I leave space for spur of the moment ideas in what I'm posting. So, but I also love not stressing about, I don't know what to post, because if I am not feeling inspired, I do have some scheduled that I could very easily let those go ahead and get posted. And I can breathe a little bit easier with that.
And also, just because you have something scheduled doesn't mean you can't move it, right? So if something comes up, the world comes up, or you remember it's National Puppy Day today,
Well, okay, today is National Okapi Day, and I'm sad I didn't learn about this until tonight, because that's my favorite animal. Anyway, happy National Okapi Day, everybody. That's the weird animal with the zebra butt and kind of looks like a giraffe and whatever. National Copy Day.
Do this. But yeah,
We have one at the zoo. It's fine.
Fun fact, I've never been to the St. Louis Zoo. I'm like a bad person. I know. I've never.
I literally go every weekend, but
It's bad. My parents.
Let's see. We also have Stephanie says she is going to pay more attention to analytics. My most popular post types were surprising. And it is kind of surprising sometimes which ones people gravitate towards. And then Shay said she plans on sticking to her content calendar. That's awesome.
Yes.
Good.
Definitely. And as we approach Q4, I really, just figure out what is it that you guys want to achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I know Meg's great with her clients, like helping them kind of figure out those goals, right? Those business goals. Like, how can content help you, right? Content is only meant to help, right? Not hurt. So really get creative and have fun with it. This is my only big suggestion.
I think that is great advice. Be creative and have fun with it. And I would say another piece of advice I have for you is don't necessarily, when you're looking at what other people are doing to get inspired for your own brand, don't always look at your own industry. Okay. Look and see what some other industries are doing that you just admire what they're doing, and see how you can bring that in to what you do, because then you're really going to wow your audience who might follow similar maybe brands to you, or like similar people within your same industry, but you're going to be knocking it out of the park doing something way different.
Exactly. Yeah. And then Meg mentioned authenticity, right?
Yeah.
If you don't be you, be you, right? You don't want to be anybody else. If something doesn't work for you,
what other questions or anything that we have? I'm trying to even think of some questions that sometimes come up. I will tell you, I've had many of several of my clients actually have taken advantage of Halcon services when it comes to social media management, designing logos and branding and website design. So I've actually had the luxury of like seeing their process. And I will tell you guys, it's pretty great. So if you are, I just want to give them a shameless plug right now. If you are considering maybe, hiring a marketing agency or anything, or needing some branding, needing to bring a plan in place, I absolutely think they're doing a fantastic job. And I will tell you what's been kind of fun for me is they do these when you sign on with them for like social media management at any level that I know of, they like ask you who are some people that it would be great if they talk to them to get more information about your brand and things like that. And I've been able to sit in on some of those conversations. And man, it's so fun. Like, it's so fun how well-rounded they really are with putting together all this information to best help you and to best help your audience. Really good stuff. You're welcome. Yeah, it's good. So fun. Okay, Christina has another question. She said, how should content on your main feed and content on your stories differ? So should you always share posts to stories? An Instagram question.
Okay. So I love this question. So you can share a feed post to stories. I usually only share posts that I am tagged in by like, for instance, the Women's Creative tagged Halcon Marketing. So I'll share it in stories, right? And say, hey, like, guys, look at this. But my recommendation is creating stories content that complements your feed content. So essentially, I love examples. So let me give you an example. So in that earlier post or example, I was like, oh, some, DIY tips for like brides, for instance. So maybe my post has one tip, right? This is a great tip for how you can save money on floral or whatever. Check out our stories for 4 more tips from our experts. So you're driving people to your stories, but then your stories can also say, check out our last tip in our feed. So you're driving people to both areas, which only increases your engagement and gets people interested in your stories content and your feed content.
Great
Because
strategy. Mhm.
sometimes you don't get a lot of context when you just post your feed or your feed posts into your stories. So it takes an extra step because you're creating more content, but why not, right? A lot of folks check out stories. So try to make them work together so that you're driving people to each of them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that is some great advice right there. I
Mhm.
love it. And make sure that if you talk about another brand, if you talk about another person or whatever in your stories, tag them. And you need to tag them on each frame. Like if it's a video, you need to tag them on each one that you might possibly hope that they share on their end. If you just tag them in one, that's the only one they're going to be able to share. So that's just like a little tiny tip that might make a big difference for you. Sometimes we don't think about that. But I think that that's really helpful. Also, using hashtags, location, things like that in your stories will help them come up under those different categories. So that can open you up to a whole new group of people checking out your stories as well, just like that works on the main feed.
And definitely use some of those engagement pieces in the stickers. If you click stickers, right? Like, even if sometimes nobody answers, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Because then when they do, it's like valuable information. So definitely use those cool features that Instagram and Facebook have to kind of up your stories content. And if you're getting really inspired and confident, create content pillars specifically for your stories. That
Getting
if
crazy.
ambitious, oh, I got this. Like, create, a series, a story series that's supposed to be just on your stories. So if you're having all these ideas, feel free to kind of expand and use the different tools that you have in your toolbox.